Hey, welcome to the channel of Bird Dog Austria. My name is Fred Greusenbrunner. I'm from Austria. I'm the pilot of a Cessna Lima 19er Oscar 1 bird dog. This is my baby. It's a 1953 bird dog, an A model that flew for the United States Army. My dad flew the bird dog for more than 20 years in the Austrian Army, and he collected more than 5,500 hours. Luckily, he was my instructor. Thanks, Dad. I'm also a member and safety director of the International Bird Dog Association. Our mission is to keep the stories of the pilot that flew the bird dog in combat alive. This series here now is called Cessna Oscar 1 Lima 19er Bird Dog Legends over Vietnam. We want to keep your stories alive for the next generation. Thank you for your service. Gentlemen, this time I have the honor to present you Colonel Charles Samuel Finch. He's an Army aviator and flew his Oscar 1 bird dog for the Catkillers in Vietnam. Charlie, it's an honor to have you here. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Let's see, I'm 80 years old. My father got me interested in aviation. He was at Normandy on D-Day. He was on Utah Beach, and he was an early pilot in Indiana. And I got interested in flying when we were in Washington, D.C. or Venezuela. I was always out with airplanes. And so I went to college, and I got an ROTC commission, and I learned to fly in college. But then I basically went to flight school in 67, got out in 68, and I was in Vietnam in July of 68. It was pretty quick career. Got married in 66, had one child in 70, I guess, 71. But yeah, Army's been the best thing. And I stayed in active duty for 7 years. And then I became a Delta pilot, but I also stayed in the reserves and made full colonel. So we're around an awful lot of people that had flown in Vietnam, and they were fabulous helicopter pilots, bird dog pilots, whatever. So that's me. I have one. Yeah, that's it. Been retired since 1960 from Delta because we had to.
I did a little bit more research on you. I need my glasses. Immediately after graduation from UGA, Charles joined the U.S. Army as a second lieutenant.
Correct.
And you are mentioned, you became then to the Catkillers in the Vietnam War. It's mentioned in this fabulous book, 100 Feet Above Hell from Jim Hooper. And I started reading it. It's beautiful.
This is the original one. That's the original, and that's the hardback copy. So yeah, go ahead.
And you've flown really a lot of missions, and you've been awarded the Silver Star.
Correct.
And you served after the war. This is very interesting. We will come to that later on as a bird dog instructor at Fort Rucker, Alabama. And until you made your transition to helicopters in the mid-1971s, resigned from active duty, you were hired by Delta Airlines, but you always remained in the Army Reserves. That's
Correct.
interesting.
Correct.
Logging thousands of hours in Hueys, OH-58s, and Blackhawks. Wow. And your last assignment in reserves that you have been the 33rd Group Commander at Fort Rucker.
Man, you did do your research. Yeah,
I did my research, sir.
It's back in 91, 92. Yeah.
And you retired as a full colonel after 28 years of service. Wow. Thank you. Amazing.
Thank you.
And what's really astonishing is that you are a very good marathon runner. And what's incredible, what I read here, you've been awarded the Olympic Medal of Honor in 1994. And this is the best thing on this. And you ran with the Olympic torch 2 years later in Miami. Sir, amazing.
I did. July 4th, 96, I think. I think that was it. Yeah. Yeah.
Incredible.
I was blessed. I worked in a underserved community and immunized little African American kids, and I just did a lot of work around the community. So, but it was an honor to run the torch. I ran it behind I think Bob Beamon, the winner of the hops long jump in Mexico City in the Olympics. So he ran in front of me and I ran behind him. So it was cool. I still have it on my wall.
Amazing. Absolutely great. And then you retired from Delta in 2003.
Correct.
And you had been a lead Czech airman on the MD-88s, the Boeing 757s and 767. Hey, and now let's come back about your flying. Where did you learn to fly? Which airplanes did you use? And when did you actually come to the bird dog?
In college, I flew a Piper Cub. That's where I got, that's what I soloed in. It was just a Piper Cub. And then the Cessna 170 started me out in flight school at Fort Stewart, Georgia. So we had 80 hours there. So that's 4 months. Then we went to Fort Rucker and we got in a Beech Baron for our instrument training. So we did 60 hours in a Beech Baron. And then we went to a bird dog and we flew maybe 50 or 60 hours, depending on tactics, depending on how well you had done. They didn't need just, once you learn to fly over trees and get just like you do, 500 feet, take off at 400 feet. So yeah, so we ended up, depending on who you were, 200 to 215 hours. And after that, I mean, you go to Vietnam. I mean, you got 30-day leave, but then you go to Vietnam.
Yeah, but the bird dog was the first tail dragger you ever flew?
First tail dragger, yes, correct.
How did you teach your students to fly a tail dragger?
Flying from the back seat became very easy. In fact, when we did reunions and a couple other things, I was more comfortable getting in the airplane in the front seat, in the back seat, than I was in the front seat, because my last 1,000 hours or whatever was from the back seat. And so how we would teach them ground loops was fairly simple. We would get them just through application of rudder and everything, get the airplane steering, and we wanted to make sure they came all the way back on the stick. And even just put it in your stomach and, just like we did when we spinning, you would go up and spin. A lot of guys didn't like spinning. It's uncomfortable. You go at 6,000 feet and you just spin it. And we let them, okay, recover. An aircraft, I'm sure you probably know, almost recovers itself. If you just leave everything alone, it will go. But it was interesting. So ground loops, you're right. Ground loops was the most important thing we had. That's where we had most of our accidents and training was ground loops. Because if you just relax just a little bit, even in a little tiny crosswind, it doesn't take much. And it could be at 10 knots, 15 knots. You're slowing down, and next thing you know, you're gone. Yep. There you are with flaps.
Yeah, this is the flap video.
That's a good.
Now look, his feet are on the brakes. The plane swerves and he slams it in rudder and aileron to correct. The right brake goes down hard.
Oh, God.
Yep. Oh my gosh. That's a great bit.
A severely damaged L19 caused by loss of directional control.
That is too cool.
Yeah, caused by loss of directional control. Yeah.
Yeah, loss of directional control.
Did you do the flap 60 training very intense, or was it just a little part of the training?
No, we did 60s all the time to train them. We trained in every different flap setting, but we wanted them to know what the angle of attack looked like at a 60, but we also wanted to know, what it looked like at 45, or I can't remember all the numbers now, but yeah, because it handles a lot different at 60. If you're in a flight pattern and you put your flaps down to 60 and you do a go around, be careful. And
you have to raise the flaps back to 45.
Absolutely. Yep.
You can hardly take off again. I know that from my own experience.
No.
Flap 60 is like you open a door. The break is incredible.
Yeah. Now, one of our our best friends almost burned to death. The student started sucking up the flaps coming in for, and not just got nervous, and the airplane's going down like that because it's going too fast and crashed. He lost his eye and later died in a bird dog accident, but front seater died.
You did spins, you did stalls. Did you do some? You did for sure chandelles. What
Yep.
else did you? What else did you fly with the bird dog in training? Deep turns.
Yeah, but basically we were trying to get them to use, because it has, I'm telling you this, it has a big rudder. So,
Yeah.
crosswinds and stuff like that, they're in it, you run out of aileron. And so, you get the crab, and the gear was so much, I don't know what they call it, where the tail are not fixed, they move a little bit.
Yeah.
What is it called? I don't know how it's called. But yeah, we do crosswinds all the time. We take them to a strip, and because we had a strip that had like this, and we'd always let them do crosswinds. They got pretty good quick, but it's foreign. Now, what we didn't do, all the show-off guys did, we didn't let them roll it on without, we wanted a full stall landing. We didn't want these roll-ons, that look so pretty when you do it. And Doc was one of our instructor pilots, and I would say he was the best pilot over there. I mean, I was a better airline pilot than him, but he was the best. He was really good in the bird dog. He was fabulous, just unbelievable. He gave me a couple check rides, and he was good. It was just, he could do anything with that airplane. Still does. He's still 70 something years old, can fly the heck. He's had so many airplanes I couldn't even begin to tell you, but he's as good. I mean, he's as good as advertised, and he'll tell you. But that's his charm. So, yeah. I only flew a Black Hawk maybe 3 or 4 times. I didn't like it, hated it. I wanted to fly the Huey, the OH-58, sat in the front seat of a Cobra, sat in the front seat of an Apache, did a couple of things like that. But I liked the Huey and the OH-58 because we could take the OH-58 out by ourselves. And you got a helicopter and you're unsupervised, you can have a ball. That was the other thing about being in Vietnam. We were unsupervised, if you will. The war dictated what we did, not a commander saying you need to fly at 500 feet, make sure you don't go west of Charlie 1 or whatever. So it was the greatest flying I ever had. That, because Delta, you can't do anything except do what they tell you.
Of course not. When you've been at Fort Ruck, Alabama, has your instructor been to Vietnam? And
yes.
And
Every single bird dog instructor I had, except for the civilians that have been there for 30 years, teaching it, 20 years,
wow,
had been to Vietnam. And they knew, we would drop sandbags or whatever to see how accurate, like we'd fly smoke grenades. And in the syllabus, it said we were supposed to fire rockets. I never fired a rocket. I don't even remember anybody firing a rocket. So it was, and we didn't, I think we had 8 hours of night, maybe out of the 50 hours or 60 hours we had a bird dog. We never flew at night. And in Vietnam, our instrument lights, half of them didn't work. Our attitude indicator, I don't care how many times you cage it. Nope, not gonna walk, not gonna work. And you had to keep up with it. And we didn't have any VORs, we had ADS, but you couldn't trust that. So it was fly the seat of your pants and just VFR. Thank goodness.
So you got told from your instructor at Fort Ruck, Alabama, how not to get shot. What is the best way to survive in a battle at a few hundred feet above hell, like you describe in your book?
I was different, and Doc will tell you that. I felt my mother was a very, very serious Christian, and she always thought I'd come back alive. I don't care. My father made me stop taking pictures of the bullet holes in my airplane after about 6 months. But I felt safer closer to the ground because you make a trade-off. If you're 1,000 feet, a lot of people can see you. If you're at 500 feet, weapons can't get that low that are a long way off to shoot at you. You know, your AK-47s and stuff like that. You get hit. But that was a trade-off I made. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of pilots wouldn't come down in my area. Some of them did later on because they realized, damn, Charlie, he's coming back every day. The ones up here, you know, now you got anti-aircraft, you got 50 cal. And I go back up north, and I just remember I didn't like flying it. I'll tell you one story. So we had our guy, Lee Harrison, got shot down 27 of October. He just flew straight and level for a little bit, and they got him. Radar blew him out. So he went down, no Mayday call, and we had to go look for him the next day. So I went with a Marine major, great guy, tanked me in. So now we're in North Vietnam. The airplane, the only person that saw it was me and Major Meehan. The airplane was like it had landed, and you could see the white ailerons, and we could see the way it was pointed. So it was survivable. Soon as they recognized that we were making that turn around it, and we had 5 airplanes up there that day, a photo bird and 5 airplanes. None of us had ever seen flak that bad. It was terrifying. And yeah, because boom, 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 and it's so noisy. So everybody, I'd seen it. So we all went on our back and took the airplane down to see, you know, we took it right down to the ground, went out to feet wet and came back again. So that was 2 hours of, you know, we finally called timeout. We all went back, landed, and we said, okay, we're all going to get killed up there. I mean, what the hell? Went
It's
back. Yeah, it was a trap. Yeah. We know they had our radios because they had one sitting right there that they had taken out. So we went back and they had moved the airplane, and you could see that they had moved it probably 100 yards, but because that was the jungle was like here, the airplane was here, and they had moved it. We saw the tracks going into the jungle, and we knew they had moved it. We had no idea where it was. We never did hear anything more about it. They thought he found his helmet in the museum at North Vietnam. But when they wanted to put that fire out, oh my goodness, we were terrified. My backseater was so scared. He was, and rightfully so. So was I. But he said, in fact, he got a Distinguished Flying Cross, and he was a hero because he just like, let's go back again. Let's go back again. The back seats gave us a lot of courage. It is amazing. Some of the things we did there, if we were by ourselves, we're going like, I don't like taking all this fire. But all of us, and the commander had not been up there in a long time. He could not believe the anti-aircraft. And we knew right then and there, and a lot of people learned that day, if they want to shoot us down, they can shoot us down. They just don't have the supply chain really to try to get all the ammo. But the bombing halt stopped 4 days later, 5 days later, and we took so much fire. And all of us felt that we were going to survive the war after the bombing halt because we didn't have to go and engage all the guns up in North Vietnam. I know that I wasn't happy about it for the Marines still getting killed, but it saved us because we didn't realize how much fire they could put out on us. Oh my goodness. And we were just so surprised. Like, where is all of this coming from? Because, you know, everybody wanted to say, well, I think it's 37 or 85 or 57, or because the darker it gets, the higher, you know, the smoke, if it's whiter. And I'm like, who cares? It's blowing up beside you. You're feeling it. You feel a concussion. It's so noisy. And they just, that was the worst day of my life because we didn't think we were too far up north that if we got hit, we never could get out feet wet or go down. It was scary. That's the scariest I've been.
Did you mainly land 3-point, or did you make wheel landings?
Yeah, we did 3 points. We just get the airplane, stall it, try to do a 3-point landing, safer. Now Doc didn't. He'd roll it on 2 wheels and whatever. But he was good. He knew that he could just plant it and then roll out. Yeah, we knew who was landing when Doc was there. There was a couple of guys, but we taught 3-point landings.
Okay, so when you came to Vietnam, there was a guy showing you your area you're flying in. How was this procedure?
Correct. But it was so easy to navigate. It really was. People say, God, how did you do it under the weather? Well, there's Highway 1 that goes all the way to Hanoi. There's 2 rivers you cross, and there's South China Sea sitting over there. It was hard. It was impossible to get lost unless you went way out west to Quezon or over by Laos. So the introduction, I had 1 hour and 30 minutes. This is it. Here's the fire bases. Here's Quezon. Here's the rock. So it was an hour and a half. That's it. That was my introduction. So when we got out there the next day or whenever it was, guy got in the back seat and he says, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "Where's the enemy?" He said, "Pick you want to get this part of the DMZ or that part?" So we had 4 airplanes up, 2 of them in Vietnam, 2 up North Vietnam, and then we had 2 down in the DMZ area. So some days we'd go way up north. We'd go up north, high ship and low ship, or we would fly in the DMZ and Leatherneck Square. So,
yeah, but was there a shooting range for you? Because nobody told you how to fire the rockets.
Oh, you can fire the rocks pretty quick. You just point the nose down, and you don't even need after 2 times firing rockets, now.
Oh, really? Okay.
A lot of times in North Vietnam now, we would launch them. We didn't want to go across the river because we were getting shot at. We would launch them, and then even though they were 100 yards away from the target, the jets could still see them. But yeah, everybody got to be really accurate with rockets. I don't know how we learned that skill. It seemed pretty obvious. And you never, I don't want to say you never, you usually landed without any rockets in your airplane. You usually fired them all. So people played, and we blew holes in boats and stuff like that. We were that accurate. You'd come down. Normally we wouldn't attack a fishing boat, and we wouldn't waste a rocket on them. But if we thought that they were bringing weapons down, anything else, they had a canvas top on them, we go shoot the rocket, and you just roll in. You can do it tomorrow. You put your rocket in, you're at 500 feet, and you're aiming it, and make sure you're coordinated. You got to be coordinated. That ball's got to be in the center. That rocket's going off, and it's got to be in the center.
You sent me a picture, Charlie, and I have a question about shooting the rockets, because I know that some guys just had with a stencil a line on their canopy, but you had a stick mounted in front of the cowling. Is that correct? Let me just see.
There may have been one. I never used it.
It's here. This one.
Never used it. Never used it. I flew that airplane a lot. I didn't need it. I think you just learn. It's just like people firing M16. You don't need to look at the website. You don't look at the front sight. And if you had asked me, what that, I don't remember it even being there. I never used it. I never used it. And by the time we were finished running airstrikes, the glass, the windshield over on the right, or the artillery mission, or some azimuth from another airplane to find somebody, it was just full of grease pencils. We wore out grease pencils, black grease pencils. Only color we had. That's a good picture. I haven't seen that for. I remember.
When we see this picture here, are you wearing a flak vest here?
Now this is sitting in the airplane. You can see that the parachutes on the back of the seat. There's an armored seat there, not like some of the helicopters had. And so there's another picture of me with a steel vest. It weighed probably 50 pounds, 40 pounds. Then I wore a flak vest, and then I had my survival radios. And then for a while I wore a groin vest, where I sat on the groin vest, and it was for tankers or something like that. But I stopped using it. But right there. And there's no, I just felt safe with that. I never got hit. As far as in there, but you can see my survival vest, and you can see, we just carried a 45, and we carried an M16, and the parachutes, we didn't take them off the airplane because we knew we weren't ever going to use them, but we felt they would help us if we got shot in the back, because they would hopefully stop an AK-47.
And
Yeah.
And when you've been in the airplane, did you wear the flag vest or did you sit on the flag vest?
No, I wore exactly what you're looking at right now. There.
Are you flying like this? Ah, okay. But so you had a second flag vest to sit on or nothing?
No, I just sat on the seat, or the parachute. The parachute would come up where you could. Yeah, I leaned on a parachute. Everybody did.
Okay.
In fact, I don't. I tell you this. I don't think we ever took him out of the airplane. Nobody's ever going to try to jump out. Never, because you can land that airplane anywhere. If you get shot down, there's no way you can get out of it. I defy anybody to get out of that airplane at 90 knots. Can open the door and no, not going to work.
The big question many people always ask me is, how in the hell were those people so brave?
The enemy?
No, you, because have you never been afraid? Because I saw the video you sent me, and you shared their story from a close friend of you who got shot down. Yeah, this was the story before the plane you're searching.
I think we were so focused on the mission.
Yeah,
and I know it sounds so corny. They sent me over here. There's just this, because you're flying with somebody in the back seat, and you're both seeing what the enemy's doing. And we both know that we're going to maybe going to take some fire if we decide to run an airstrike, because we're going to be orbiting somewhere. And I think because we saw so many, and I know you know this, but when we were there in 68, 69, Americans were losing 300 killed a month. So we saw body bags a lot, particularly because there was a morgue type down by Fubai. So we saw C-130s and, having bags or caskets going back to the United States, green bags. So there was a sense of duty, and that, people to this day, like, why didn't you just back off? Well, some guys did, but not because there are Marines talking to you. There's a voice saying, we're getting hit, we're taking mortars, we think they're 200 yards in front of us in that tree line. What are you going to do? You're going to go look for that tree line, and you're going to, if you take air, it doesn't do any good if you just run away. So I flew up there with some of the finest people in the world and some of the bravest people, and we all play cards and at night and stuff like that. But nobody ever said, weren't you scared? We were all scared, but not scared to stop the mission. Does that make sense? If you get in your Porsche or whatever and you're doing 80 miles an hour, and all of a sudden you say, I think I'll do 100. Well, you're a little bit uncomfortable at 100. Then let's do 120. Well, I survived 120. So that's all of a sudden you go out there and you fly 6.5 hours, you get shot at 20 times, and it's like, okay, I'm fine with that as long as they're small arms. I don't want to go up there and get shot with flak 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, nor did Doc. Doc got shot up pretty bad. I don't think he took any hits, but he got scared to death. A lot of us did, that's why so many people left after 3 months, 4 months up there, because, after a while, you get tired of being scared. A lot of guys said, I don't want to do it. I got a kid and a wife at home. Send some more people up. It wasn't like the real heroes flying, B-17s out of Germany or England. I mean, when they were never going to complete 25 missions, we lost 15, 15, ridiculous. Those are the guys and I get to talk with them up in Oshkosh when I go give speeches up there. They're incredible, because I asked them the same question you did.
Really? Okay.
I said, how did you know? And two of them are still living. One of them, it was so cold in those airplanes. I don't care what airplane, it was P-51 or whatever. But they fought the elements in an uncomfortable airplane before they even got to Germany. Flying across the channel, they're freezing up there at 28,000 feet. And they just pursued on. And, how many times did they come back and they lost 10 in their squadron, or in whatever they call it in the Air Force? They lose 10. I mean, yeah. And they didn't think anything about it. But, Bud Anderson told me, I think he's 105, P-51 pilot, flew in Korea, flew in Vietnam, flew in World War II. He said, you just have a sense of obligation to the people that are, have it worse off than you. We're flying an airplane, and we can destroy other airplanes, and we can, make the war, change the war.
Which types of airplanes did you use?
Of course, we had two type airplanes, and I won't go into whether G or E, but there were one was constant speed and one was variable prop. Well, because I wanted to pick my airplanes, I tried to always get constant speed, so I didn't have to deal with, whatever. I just wanted, I would have to worry about what the prop did. A lot of guys like the variable prop because they thought they could get better mileage out of the airplane. I didn't like more than 3 hours and 15 minutes, and I wanted to be on the ground. A lot of people.
Was the fuel consumption higher with the constant speed compared to the fixed pitch?
I think it was. I think mine was higher, but because a lot of guys would stay out 345, 350, and I said, you guys are nuts. And because we'd all be on the air, usually said, when are you going in? Because we knew that we had takeoff time about whether it was 9 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever. We kind of knew when everybody was going to come in because we would borrow other people's targets, or if we were out of rockets, we'd say, come over here, mark a target for me. So we kind of, it was such a combined effort, and we just folded. I mean, everybody just kind of knew what the mission was, and everybody was brave, courageous, whatever you want to call them. And we had the best back seats in the world that could find targets. And a lot of them would be, they'd fly in our back seat in the morning, and then you go and have an afternoon mission to say, Charlie, let's go up right on the edge of the DMZ. We found a whole bunch of NVA, North Vietnamese Army. And so we complemented one another, and our back seats complemented one another. The Marines had more intelligence in our back seat. Number one, they had been in the bush. They had been on the ground as forward observers or infantrymen for 6 months, and then they rotated into our back seats. So their knowledge of whether it's an 8-inch gun, a 155, not to bore you with, but they knew the artillery weapons by heart because they had been on the fire bases. They had been in the trails. They knew the terrain. That was like their backyard. So the Marines were extremely good and were just as important as the pilots, and maybe even more so, because they could do a fire mission because the guy would say shot and then splash. Whereas when he shot his weapon, we would hear over the radio shot, and then we were waiting for splash and see where it came down. And the backseater would say, okay, 15 meters to the right. They would talk to the artillery guy on the guns, and they were just, it was like having, a lot of times we never even bothered with the artillery missions, let the guy in the back seat, because he was very knowledgeable and conversed in their language. We did it a lot, and now we did naval gunfire off the New Jersey or destroyer, and they weren't real accurate, but they made a lot of noise and scared the North Vietnamese quite a lot. And so we would fire that. Airstrikes, we did all the airstrikes. And then we had Army people in our backseat also. The Army people are the ones that went up in North Vietnam with us. Marines didn't, as far as I know. Now, I wasn't there when it started in March, but having their backseat with eyes, with binoculars, and remember, we were kind of adjusting, our angle, our altitude, our airspeed, trying to fool the radar, trying to make sure nobody got a lock in on us. And so they were, a lot of times we'd make them fly too, because, you can get airsick back there. We had too many people getting airsick. And, we let them fly for a while, which paid us off, particularly when one of our guys got injured, and particularly it just gave them a lot more confidence. And then we could actually, back then, a lot of us smoked and stuff like that. We could, just have a cigarette and relax a little bit. We were so occupied. And this is not to say that we work really, really hard, but you're so occupied because in the area, not only are there the North Vietnamese Army, and not only are the friendlies where there's a Marine or an Army unit, but you had fires all the time. When I mean fires, one artillery would be firing this way, another artillery would be firing this way. So we had to be alert on one type of fire mission. They would tell you where they're going to shoot, but you never can understand how it can go up, 10,000 feet and then come drop back over. And plus, then when the infantry on the ground would be shooting mortars, it was an indirect fire weapon, but we were worried about, okay, are we going to be in the target line? So a lot of the times when we ran airstrikes with troops in contact, particularly, I know in the July, August, September, October, when the fighting was really intense, it's been intense in the DMZ for 2 years. We had a top of our wings painted white. I think it was our ailerons that are white. And so the jets could see us, so they could identify you, because you're flying around down there at 1,000 feet or 1,500 or two, whatever. We just had to be, we just couldn't be camouflaged. And everybody says, well, and I'm trying to think. The top of our ailerons were white on both sides, so the jets could find us. So particularly when we were running troops in contact, we would fly in a racetrack pattern, not to do the same racetrack pattern, let's say at 1,500 feet. And the jets would come up. We did not have any TACAN. In other words, we had maps that say, okay, at 360 degrees at 6 miles, that's where we'd be. But we had our maps written up. And so we'd tell the guys coming out of Da Nang, the fighters, we're about 360 degrees, 6 miles, and I'll be circling with white, whatever, because the O2s weren't up there. They did not like that mission at all. And that doesn't mean they weren't brave, but then the Marine bird dogs didn't stay there very long. So most of our jets that were hit in the bombing run itself, because the North Vietnamese knew, I didn't talk to them, but the North Vietnamese knew once they come in and once that noise points down, they're going to, 350, 400 knots. And they know that they've got to go through this. And so they would, basically try to put a whole bunch of steel in front of them. So we would fly over the friendlies and we would identify the friendlies because we couldn't see the Americans on the ground. So we would fly and say, okay, if you're going to drop Snake and if you're going to drop a 250 or you're going to drop Mavetom, I'm going to fly over them. And so you understand where we're at, that right below me at 1,000 feet or 200 Marines or 70 Marines or whatever. So they would know, and we would give them a path, east, west, that would parallel where they were. So when they threw out their napalm, it's tumbling and tumbling, we wouldn't hit them. The key is when we're talking to the guys on the ground, we're listening to them, they have their open mic, and they would say, we're getting hot. In other words, that napalm was maybe a little bit too close. I never, in my whole year there, I never had a fragment hit any of the friendlies, but it was close. People don't realize that bombs, you don't know if it's going to hit the top of a tree or if it's going to go down. And they had different type of bombs that would go into the ground, then explode. Their ordnance was so complicated. When you and I would find a target, let's say, and you and I discuss it, and I say, okay, back seat and front seat, we say, okay, what do you think we need here? It's all high drag ordnance. Low drag is for up north. Low drag is when they can drop their bombs at 600 feet, 1,000 feet, 10,000. We don't do that. We want the fins to come out. It slows down. They're more accurate, and they can put a bomb right in that cockpit almost every time. They're that accurate, depending on the wind and how much courage they have on their bomb run. But you and I, backseat and I would discuss it. What do you think? All right. So when they came up on station, when they're orbiting, because sometimes you'd have 4 flights ready to hit a target, particularly if it was really intense and we wanted this artillery gun pieced out. So, we'd say, okay, what do you have on? Now, when we first scrambled the air, you and I were flying down there, and we found a target. We got a huge bunker complex, fresh dirt. Somebody's been digging, somebody's been camouflaging a gun. So we would scramble, we would talk to our DASC, which is basically the control center. We'd say, scramble 2 flights of air with Snake and Nape, which was napalm and 250-pound bombs or 500-pound bombs. Sometimes, depending on the target, we'd ask them to do 750s. But normally, the scrambled F4s down in Chu Lai and Da Nang, which is only for a jet 30 minutes away, In fact, I think it's probably faster than that. But by the time they take off, they're right back up on the frequency. And they say, I got snake and nape, and I got 20 Mike, you know, the guns. And so now we have to discover the strategy of doing it. If we have troops in the open, then we start thinking, God, do we go down and get them with our guns first, or do we go down and get them with a napalm? And it was strategy. And then you had to, you know, you have to think, the reason we have these Air Force guys or Marine guys is we didn't think we could kill them with the artillery immediately because we adjust fire if we didn't walk them in. So you'd punch out your rocket and you would be probably 10 feet from the enemy. I mean, it was easy. And I don't want to say I was better. I just went down lower to make sure I could hit the target. A lot of guys didn't like me for doing that. They thought it was crazy. But so we would drop the smoke grenade or whatever, and the jets would see it and they said, okay, one's in, you know, and, you know, I'll drop 2 napalms, and the other guy would come behind him and drop 2 bombs. And then I'd say, gunfighter, do you have 20 Mike? And they said, yeah, we got plenty. So they would come down and do strafing runs with their guns. And man, I'm going to tell you, it was death. I mean, the picture I sent you just of the dead Marines, of the dead NVA, we killed a lot of people. And, you know, it's you take pictures, but after a while, okay, you got them. And how did you get them? And then we would tell the jets, you know, we see 7 bodies or 8 bodies in a bunker complex, and we destroyed an anti-aircraft gun, or we destroyed whatever. And we were, you know, there was 2 of us in the airplane, and there was no reason to lie. And, you know, if you didn't hit anything, we'd tell the jets they didn't hit anything. But you create a lot of, go ahead.
You mentioned the smoke grenades. Did you have colored smoke grenades?
Yes,
yes,
we did. We had yellow. We had yellow. Oh my gosh! Now you're going to quiz me. Yellow, red, purple. We didn't have any white, like your airplane had. But you could. I mean, you've flown it. You can drop something, and by calculate the wind and how high you are, you can be very, very close. I mean, if you
I just made a picture of my bird dog today. And I got here in the back seat, you see, I got some.
Oh yeah, you got all colors.
Yeah, and I also have the colors. Yeah,
that's cool. And they would last pretty long. I don't know how, but you use those to put on the side of your airplane for stuff, or do you just play with them?
No, it's just for decoration. Yeah.
Okay, that's really cool. That's really cool. And while you have that picture up, you know, depending, yeah, go back to your picture.
Yeah, okay.
If you can see it, then I can talk about something. So that's how you do all this stuff. So obviously the backseater has a quadrant too that they could use their power, but they didn't really mess with it. But everything you see in glass up there, we would use our grease pencils because you run maybe 4 flights of air and maybe, you know, 3 artillery missions. And the only way to keep up is with a grease pencil because we didn't have time to write it on a knee board. We're busy and we can see the call signs and how much ordnance they have. And the back seat would help us sometimes. But there was always the discussion, do you fly with your windows open or do you fly with them closed? Well, obviously, when you have air coming in the front seat, the back seat, if he's communicating with the ground or communicating with the artillery, sometimes that was bothersome and they'd have to turn their mic and they'd put their hand over their mic. So that was always an area of discussion. Some guys didn't like the windows at all. I could have cared less. Some guys want to smoke in the back seat, you know, and they'd want the air. But it got hot. You know, we were wearing, I mean, it was just hot over there. It wasn't like 100 degrees, but it was probably 85 in the cockpit. But you could see the backseaters could actually look out your window too as you go like that with the binoculars. So it was funny. Having the windows open or closed was always a discussion. It's like, whatever. And so when you see, oh my gosh, you got a whole bunch of rocket switches. Oh my gosh. What do you got? 2, 4, 6, 8. My God, we only had 4.
You only had 4 because this is a rocket panel from it's out from the book from Maynard Thompson, the lovable Lima 19er.
Oh, that's Maynard's.
Exactly. And there were 2 sorts. There was the one with the 4 switches for the army, and this one was for the Air Force with 8 switches.
Oh, no kidding. No kidding. That's cool. That's really cool. Good old Maynard Thompson.
Yeah. I
What
will
a
have him
gift.
on an interview very soon about his book. Yeah.
He's 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 a legend. I mean, he's a legend for what he did for our bird dogs, for
Yeah.
all of the 11 companies that were over there in the history. And I mean, none of us can pay him back enough for what he did or has done. That's kind of cool. So when we discussed, Doc and I talked about yesterday, I said, Doc, we always had a safety in our red toggle switch. I said, when did we take that safety switch out? And he said, I think we took it out before takeoff. I went like, I don't know. Because I remember when you're holding that stick, that trigger's right there. I think I kept mine in until we were ready to go.
I think I have did you have this stick that I have here?
Yeah, that's it. And so we had a toggle switch. We had a little safety switch that would fit in the hole of that red switch.
Yeah, okay.
And so to keep us from pulling the trigger and hitting anybody. Now the crew chiefs, bless their heart, who saved our lives all the time with just heavy maintenance when they didn't really have all the equipment to do it at Dong Ha. They were fabulous, but they would arm our rockets right before takeoff, which is kind of a scary thing. You just pull it down. And I flew a year up there. I never had rockets that weren't armed properly. Now you think, well, that's got to be easy. Yes. But this is during when we were taking incoming. So mortars were driving, or rockets were, or artillery. So there was a lot of noise, and they were ready to get back in the bunker, and they stayed out there. We never armed our own rockets because we weren't used to it. Now, yes, we could do it. You pull it and then move it over. But they were great. I'm still in touch with several of the crew chiefs, and they were a gift to us. So we go 45 minutes up from Fubai, fill up our whole gas tanks. We always just use one coming up, filled it till it overflowed so that we knew it was full. And then most of the guys remembered, you only forget once to switch your gas tanks. You only forget once. You only forget. And when that engine quit, it's automatic. You go right there and switch tanks and you're fine. But man, and
especially in the bird dog, you only have left, right, and not both.
That's it. And they were not that accurate for 39 gallons, but we never would want to take an airplane without seeing full tanks. Now, a lot of guys, if they had a 3-hour mission, they got scrubbed at 2 hours, they'd fly it back because they knew they had enough to get down to Fubai. I never left Dong Ha without 2 full tanks. I did, it's one of my safety things, whatever.
When you're flying out there, you followed some rules. So never maintain the same altitude and change the course all few seconds. I think you mentioned 4 seconds.
We tried 4 to 5 seconds you kind of learn that after a while. All of a sudden, that's what killed Lee Harrison. Plus a lucky shot. But most of the time, if we're in the DMZ now, if we're between Dong Ha and North Vietnam it's called Leatherneck Square. We're not facing radar control guns there. Okay. If we're in North Vietnam, now we have radar control guns plus people that are used to shooting at airplanes. They're more professional. They do it. They've done it ever since they left Hanoi. So if you were flying straight and level for maybe 4 or 5 seconds, you may get shot at because you've gotten lazy. You didn't try to get lazy. You just do. So we always try to tell people, change a little bit. It doesn't have to be much. You don't have to change 500 feet, just 100 feet. We don't know what their guns or their radar looks like. We just know they got Lee Harrison when he went straight and level for probably a minute and a half before he got killed. It proof's in the pudding. The jets that got shot down, they rolled in 400 knots, whatever they're doing. And I was running the airstrike, and we could see it. We could see all the tracers coming up at him. And he knew in the briefing that I had given them that they were going to take fire. This was the day of the bombing halt, day before the bombing halt. So once he came in, -2, his wingman came right behind him. All right, so that's 2 That's two airplanes that have come the same route, like they're on a highway. Well, guess what? Guy comes back again, boom. He knew where he was going, just like what they did in North Vietnam with the 105s. They knew which way they were coming in. They knew what the radar is, and boom, they shot them out of the sky. Yeah, you didn't want to repeat anything. A lot of times we'd have, particularly if a guy turned right really hard, go burner, go high, F4, A4, A6, they would get shot at. So we'd say, okay, don't do that again. Let's turn left and go high, or let's go straight out. We had mountains over there. We had one F4 go into the ground, got target fixation. I wasn't running him. Somebody else was running him. And I heard him on the air. And, one's in, two's in, and one's in. And two, the Dash 2, the second airplane said, where's one? He had run into the mountain. And it vaporized. It truly vaporized because he's doing 400 knots. They couldn't find the hole. I mean, you know what I mean? They just like, where did it go? Well, their molecules or whatever. They couldn't, they finally did, but nothing's left of it. Nothing's left of it. It's in the ground. That was scary.
I got this video here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was this a normal way how to attack ground targets? Just wait. You go almost inverted in a dive.
And that's getting out of the way of fire. Now, if he wants to shoot a rocket at the end, no, that's usually getting out of the way of the bad guys. I did that forever. I can tell you, I did that a lot, particularly flying North Vietnam. As soon as I saw the flak, as soon as anything, I felt they were on me, I wanted to get out of that altitude and get out of that heading, and I didn't want them to be able to lock on me.
So and you also changed the course by 5 degrees left, and right, and up and down.
Yeah, just you didn't want to get your back seat sick, so that was a variable that we just, and that's why we'd always tell them, you fly for a while, but just make sure that you kind of do what's comfortable. Heading, go left, maybe 15, 20, 20 seconds. It depends on what you're looking at outside too. If you can't find anything, if you're in North Vietnam, you doggone don't want to be. Now, when we had a high ship, low ship in North Vietnam, which was established way before I got there, the idea was, number one, this guy up here can see in case something happens to him. And when Lee Harrison went down, this guy up here, there's no blame on him. He lost him for a little bit and didn't see him go all the way in. So that was the whole reason that we had two people up there. But if Doc would be up here and I'd be down here, or we would swap, his job mainly is to keep us in sight. And so he could do whatever he wants because the ground's going to fire at this guy. He probably won't go after the high ship. I was a high ship. I didn't like high ship. I didn't like it. I wanted to see the enemy better. I didn't like being up at 8,000 feet. We used to kid a lot of the guys that come at 10,000 feet. I said, you need oxygen if you go under 1,000 feet. And you actually don't. But anyway, yeah, it takes you so long to climb to 10,000 feet, and that drove me crazy. So a lot of guys would fly at 7,000. The low ship would fly at 4,500, something like that. You can see a lot at 4,500 because the area is so small. And it's all identifiable. You know where the bushes are. You know where the trails are. You know where what a camouflage 50 cal looks like. The gun pits. You can find gun pits. Now they're going to be empty in 2 days, but yeah, you can see them.
But you never flew alone. You always had a backseater.
I went up maybe 2 or 3 different times without a real observer backseater. I took a guy from CBS up. I took a couple civilians. I took roadshow guy too. In fact, I took both of them up in the same airplane. He was a drummer and he sat here and she sat there, whatever. But yeah, you could go up there by yourself, but it really was not to your benefit. If you get shot, you don't have anybody in the back seat flying for you. And your eyes and ears are better with him because he's looking, and he can see the guns shooting at you because the one that kills you, you'll never hear. But they were invaluable. We were a team, and they were just as important as we were. They were
And
great.
did you use only white phosphorus or also high explosives?
No, we didn't. The guys down south used high explosive. Our company commander, somebody before I got there, we didn't use we didn't use HEs. We all did white phosphorus because our particularly in North Vietnam, we're not going to roll in on somebody with an HE. We want to be able to show the F4s the white phosphorus. You can still do some damage. I burned some huts and I burned. Yeah, well, you can break up a machine gun area by just going after them. When I destroyed the 2 trucks up in North Vietnam, and remember, they couldn't shoot at us and we couldn't shoot at them. And we had seen the mortar fire and indirect weapons fire in the northern part of the DMZ because the Marines were talking to Marines and saying, this is not good. And so when I went up there, we saw the 2 trucks. My backseater is still alive, Clyde Trathorn, Tango. I said, look at those 2 trucks. We know they're calling ammunition. And so, we decided, okay, do I get flat and low? And I started down and went like, no. I want to flatten out a little bit. I want to make sure that I got him head on. I don't want, I know that if I miss him, I'll hit the top of the truck or the engine itself. And I fired 2 rockets and I'll never forget everything was so coordinated. I mean, I couldn't miss. You couldn't miss. And Clyde said, oh, you shot him at 300 feet. And I think it was less than that. But anyway, when I shot, they both exploded. Now, we couldn't see them both explode, except we saw these things in our wing that had come up, either mortar pins or something. But we saw a lot of shrapnel, whatever you want to call it. And we pulled up, and we were in smoke for the first 5, 8, 10 seconds because it just exploded. In fact, we were reported by the guys on the ground. So what was this mass explosion up north? We weren't supposed to be up there. So I got in a little bit of trouble, not too much. But when we did it, we realized. So Clyde Trathorn's friends in the Marines told us to thank us because they did not receive a whole lot of incoming for the next 2 weeks. So that was cool. That was a proud moment because we finally I'm tired of the Paris peace talks. We decided that we want to, tell the enemy, don't just keep coming down south. Remember, we couldn't touch them. We couldn't have a Marine with a foot in the North Vietnam. It wasn't allowed. Couldn't do that. It's the craziest war in the world. But that got their attention. And so they started, because people just don't believe that until they've flown up there. You'll see all these Catkillers that have all these huge pictures of American flag. You can fly up there at 100 feet and you could count trucks, Jeeps, weapons, men, and you're looking right at the North Vietnamese. You're looking in his face. You're only 100 feet away from him and they couldn't shoot at you. But it was the dumbest thing in the world. And you could, you go back and give your intel, say, guess what? How many trucks did you see, Charlie? I don't know, 6. See any tanks? No. Do you see any, weapons being hauled by the Jeep or something? No, not really. Well, how many people did you see? Well, there was a tent here and there was a tent here and there was people coming out of a tent here. That's how silly it was. You could have taken your M16 and killed as many people as you wanted, but they were trying to solve a war in 68. They were trying to do it. We don't want you bombing.
I think this here. What's this? Is this?
Okay. So you can see the bomb craters with.
Yes.
Now, believe it or not, where I can't point like an idiot. So there's a bunker complex in there, and you can see that the vegetation is not growing like it would be. So
okay. That was a clear signal, or?
Yeah. And for the fact there, you could see some of the ground had been disturbed. Now, I'm not saying they rake it, but in that area, in fact, that area, the big battle that area is, they awarded me and back seat of Distinguished Flying Cross. We killed a bunch of people in that 2-day period. We got shot like crazy, but
Okay.
we took a picture of it, and you have to be there, but you can tell when vegetation's been moved. Maybe it's not green enough or it's brown, and you can tell in the dirt that they have actually dug in underneath. And this wasn't a very good picture because we were so low. You can tell how low I was flying. That wasn't with a telephoto lens. And if you go back to that picture, only because I remember the area so well, there was like a I was like, see that line at the top and everything? We kept thinking, okay, why isn't that filled with water? Because it wasn't filled with water. So we knew that they had actually dug something in there that they could crawl and get on one of their machine guns or whatever. Yeah, we killed a lot of people those 2 days. I think I killed a lot that afternoon, and then I think I got up the next morning. I think I was with Clyde again, and we killed, I don't know, 40, 50 people, and we caught them. We never knew it until the battle until October 30th, or Kinmon battle, where we saw people coming out of the ground. We were totally naive about the tunnels up there and the amount of depth they could get and what they could do it. Now, after the war, we had a lot of, I don't say a lot, Bud Bruton and a couple other people went up there. And yes, they were, they had managed to build, I mean, obviously not like the Hamas people, but they had managed to build complexes underneath the DMZ where we never thought they could because of the low water table. And they had figured it out. How they figured it out, I don't know. We were shocked about the intel after the war of where they were at and why they didn't shoot us more. One of the times that I can't remember, it's over here, but Jack Bentley was flying with me, and somebody I had annoyed him so much, they decided to get out of their tunnel, whatever, and come up and shoot me. And that was the only time that I actually said on the airplane on guard, I said, I've been hit, because it was just I mean, it was a machine, it was AK on full automatic. And I didn't know, I just remember looking up there and seeing those holes, and I'm like, and Jack said, are you all right? I went like, yeah, I'm all right. And I said, this is where I got shot, and I'm going home. I was done. It was like 5:30 at night. Jack remembers. Yeah. First time I got scared on the radio, because I thought, man, because the airplane actually shook. I mean, it shouldn't, but you just felt like, was it me shaking or was that? That was interesting. Yeah, backseat was scared to death. Because he could see there, he's sitting back there, all of a sudden he see these holes appearing on my wing. Like, yeah, okay. Let's go home, Charlie. Okay. It was funny how so many people that thought, Lee, I don't like this job. I think I want to work in the headquarters, but they never left. The backseaters were fabulous. But they'd been on the ground so many of them been on the ground 6 months against North Vietnamese regular army. I mean, they had survived that. Now I can go sit in the back seat. Yeah, I'll do that. So, yeah. I'm still in touch. There's 6 of them that are still living that we flew with. So that's 68 to here. It's a pretty long time that we've known them. And we get together once in a while. Cat killers get together for reunions, but we got together with all the aircraft observers, Marines particularly, and went down to Florida. And it was just interesting to see their logbooks. You see your name on somebody's logbook. That was kind of cool. Now, still alive. It's cool.
And it's amazing that you're still in contact with those guys. Amazing.
Yeah.
After all those years.
Yeah, there was such a bond, and at the end they gave me a cape that says Super Charlie. And that's one of the fondest things that I have in the war collection, if you will. I mean, they had a party when I was going away with 7 Marines, or I don't know how many it was. And they gave me a cape that says Super Charlie. I had a good reputation, but that wasn't it. It was just that we were so close to one another. We were so close because you spend 6 hours in an airplane with them. You better like each other. Yeah. And you better eat and hydrate, because we got dehydrated up there all the time. We couldn't take enough water. your adrenaline's going so much you don't realize it until you get on the ground and you're so thirsty you can't see straight. It's 3 hours. Is, you go fly your airplane 3 hours. It gets tiring, because there's no autopilot. And anyway, they're great guys. Fondest memories. I've been so fortunate to be amongst these guys that are just beyond, and they gave you that courage. Let's go out again. We didn't get them. We need to go back. All right, let's fire some more artillery. And the artillery guy would be in the fire base and said, haven't you guys had enough? Can't you hit them? I said, no, you're the ones that can't hit them. And we had that type of communication with them. It was great.
So what's very interesting for me is in your time in Vietnam, you had the O-1 bird dogs, you had the Skymaster, the O-2, and also the OV-10 Bronco.
Correct.
And you said there were different missions. So not all 3 airplanes had the same possibilities to do the same in the area?
Not where we were.
Okay.
Not where we were. Now, in the mornings, you would see an O-2 Air Force push-pull airplane. They would be going up north, and I mean way up north. Now, I'm not meaning to annoy, but they would be going in the middle. We couldn't believe it because they were by themselves. Now, they landed at Phu-Bai. One of them crashed. But they were in the area once in a while, but we never, I take that back. We had one in the DMZ that was shot down. In fact, I should know that, but I was not there that day when he got shot down, and I don't think he got out. And it wasn't, I think Bat-21 was an O-2 pilot, if I remember that movie. But the OV-10s, because now remember, many of the same people in our back seat would go in the back seat of an OV-10. I think Russ Cito's went in it and a couple others. Very hot cockpit. So if we knew an OV-10 was out there doing work, and we knew that he had 5-inch rockets, HE, we'd say, can you come over and help us out? We're out of air, artillery's not getting the job done. I probably ran an OV-10 3 times, maybe 4 times. You'd be out there flying. Next thing you know, the OV-10's over here just shooting up the sky. Like, what is he doing? Well, they could forward air control themselves. So they carried 20 Mike? Maybe they did. I don't know. I just remember they had those big HC things on the things, and it made a lot of noise and created a lot of damage. But they couldn't go slow like we are. I mean, they could slow down, but not like we were. They didn't have the visibility that we did, because we can look up, there. They can't look down here. So, okay. Yeah. Now, we never saw them. They were Broncos and Marine pilots. Conspiracy theory. So Marines had a bird dog called the OC. I had a couple of Delta pilots that flew it, particularly during Quezon in February of '68, when everything was going nuts. And we think, because those guys got out of flying C models, and a lot of them went back to jets, but that conspiracy theory. So in the time I was there, I think we had 2 ground loops, 2 shot down, and they were undependent. The guys didn't want to fly them. I'm telling you. And I know a good friend, Jim Lawrence, that flew them. For some reason, we all thought they were just going to wreck them all so they could go fly their fighters or something, because they didn't last very long when we were up there. I think they lost 7 in the entire war. We lost 249. They lost 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the crew chiefs, they did a really good job, because you sent me a picture where I can see your bird dog with several holes in the wings, and also one in the strut. How did this work out? So here's the picture.
They do the sheet metal work when they went back to the fire base. when they went back to Phu-Bai. So you didn't have to repair that. They might put masking tape. I don't know. The only reason we put the yellow circle around it was because of, so the maintenance people down in Phu-Bai would fix it, sheet metal work or something. And we knew that uh, that they really, I don't even know if we had masking tape back then. I can't even remember if they put tape on it. I'm sure they did. But they were so loyal to the airplane. It was their airplane. Self-sealing tanks. That
Did they
thing,
work? Did those self-sealing tanks
we never,
actually
never,
work?
never saw a fuel leak. Never
Okay.
saw it. And that's an exiting, looks like a 50 cal probably. Now there's no leaks. Yeah. We always wondered what would happen if they hit a rocket, and everybody said it wouldn't go off. So
Ah, yeah. Okay. So, but you always flew your bird dog. You always flew the same plane, or did you
no,
change?
no. You'd never fly the same plane 2 days in a row. Usually,
Ah,
usually,
really? Okay.
yeah.
So there was no Charlie Finch's plane.
No. I think
Okay.
maybe our platoon commander. I don't know. Some people maybe have asked for an airplane. No, because the engine, where you have to change. I don't know, where you have to do the things that are timed out on the airplane have to be changed out. It takes 2 or 3 days. You never ask for an airplane. All I know is you sign out, you get in a Jeep and you go down the flight line and say, that's your airplane today. And you fly it 6 hours or 7 hours that day, maybe bring it home. You may fly it the next day. So sometimes you fly it. I looked at my logbook. I probably never had any airplanes I flew more than 3 days, 4 days in a row. It wasn't because you asked for a certain one. They didn't, at that time, everybody thought we were prima donnas. We're not that much prima donnas. No.
Charlie, when you finished your tour in Vietnam, how was your coming home? I read that you flew home with Delta.
No, I flew home with Delta when my father died in Japan, February 19th of 70. So my tour ended at the Catkillers in 69, July of 69. So I asked for an extension. And so you have to go home for 30 days, see your wife. And then I came back and went back to Fubai to General Zayce and Hamburger Hill. They had a Huey operation, and I could fly King Airs. We had 3 King Airs and Hueys. I didn't fly the Huey. But General Zayce was the head of 24th Corps at that time. So I had 6 months not flying bird dogs, but I was at Fubai for the months. So when I went home, my friends had written me letters about all the peace, all of the riots and all this other stuff. Get out of the war, get out of the war. And I was very fortunate. I saw a little bit of it. I saw a little bit of it at the Seattle airport, a little bit of it in San Francisco. But when my father died, I was in Japan. So I took a flight to Travis, I think. And then I remember having to go to San Francisco. And my drive into San Francisco, I'm just very, very familiar. I knew I was getting on a Delta airplane, but I just remember all the peaceniks and peace signs I'd never seen before. I was totally ignorant of it. And, back then, we never had beards. We never had long hair. We were military. And then when I got back, buried my father, and then I went to Fort Rucker to train. So I was isolated. But now when we go to Atlanta, the ball games, there were always, there's always people protesting the war, but very moderate in the South. It's up north in Ohio and everything. But you see it on TV every night. And we knew that it was an unpopular war. We had been there and we knew how silly it was that we were losing 300 people a month for up to what? Or was it 300 a week? We lost, I think it's 300 a week. 300 a week? Yes, it was 300 a week. And then it went down to 290 a week because we used to keep track. 300 a week. That's how much we were losing, 68, 69. That's when we had 525,000 people assigned in Vietnam, soldiers. And most of them were losing in I Corps, where we were at. That's the furthest north in South Vietnam. We had a couple instances where we spoke. I can't remember. One is in Atlanta, one is at Oshkosh and everything, where we got in the airplane. As you get older, it was amazing how hard it was to get your body back into that airplane because you're older. You're like, God, I can't get in there. And I forgot how small it was. Well, you're flying. It's small. And I don't know how tall you are, but we had a lot of observers that were 6'2" and they getting in that back seat was hard. It was hard. And they carried, one of the things you learned about, there you are, there we are. Yeah. Doc, I'm kidding. You're not going to ever get him out of the front seat of that airplane. He was really good. He was really a good friend, good combat warrior, hell of a combat warrior. And the thing about it is he chose that I don't want to go up and fly North Vietnam anymore. I'm just tired of seeing what's going on up there. He was mad at the war and mad at, we couldn't defeat the enemy by the way our strategy was to defeat him. So great guy. You're going to enjoy talking to him.
Yeah, I will definitely. But you never had an intention to buy a bird dog after Vietnam?
No. I had enough. I love him to death. It made my life. It actually, the year in Vietnam changed me only in the fact it gave me a lot more confidence in what I could do and gave me a lot more confidence in your fellow soldier. Because that's why we had so many reunions. We loved each other. And that sounds so corny, but it's true. I mean, and you may not get along and people write nasty things about you for flying too low and exposing yourself in backseat to being killed. And people that thought that I got a lot of recognition, I guarantee you, everybody up there deserved as much recognition as I did. I mean, people flying helicopters and all of a sudden they get shot at, they get an award. We weren't out for awards. Our awards and decoration officers didn't want to be bothered. And that didn't bother anybody. Nobody was out there trying to get an award. And everybody in the first platoon deserved a Distinguished Flying Cross at least half or 3 times as much as anybody. Because I saw them. I saw them getting shot at and they still kept running airstrikes and firing artillery and staying right with the troops. But you can't compare courage. If you're not scared, and I mean this, if you're not scared and you go into the battle, I don't think that's a lot of courage. If you're scared and still go in the battle, that's really courage to me. So, if somebody said, Charlie, do you mind going over there and look for these guys? No. And if I would ask them and they'd say, well, I'm really not sure. I said, don't go. No, I'll go ahead and go. See, that to me is more courage than it. That's being brave. Because now he's like, shit, do I really want to do this? I went over there. It wasn't because I had a lot of courage. I just wasn't worried. It was a sense of, I can do this. After being up there a year, remember, nobody else flew a year that I did. Nobody. Because of, the danger or maybe the environment or whatever it was. But everybody said, why do you still do that? It's my job. I'm effective. I bring combat power to the enemy. And I'm good at it. Some people are good at what they do. I was really good at war fighting, and everybody knew it. But I loved it. I couldn't get enough. I hated to leave. And my father told me, he said, you need to stay there till the end of the war. Well, the Army didn't think that was a good idea. And then I said, okay, I'll go fly, twin engine airplanes and fly General Westmoreland and all those guys around, which is the dumbest thing I ever did. I should have stayed with the bird dogs, but I may have. But yeah, we would see people go beyond the call of duty and you just sit there and you don't back off. You didn't see the fighter pilots back off. You didn't see the Jolly Green Giants back off. I don't know if it's because everybody's on the radio with you, and, when you say jets, we're getting shot at with 50 cows, there's tracers coming up at your 3 o'clock. So don't come in this way. And, they'd say, we're going to come in anyway. Okay. He wants to push until he gets the target because the Dash 2 can see where the bombs are hitting. And then all of a sudden you get 4 secondary explosions as you're blowing up an ammo dump or something like that. They're going like, well worth it, because they're going to go back in 30 minutes. I mean, think about a jet. They come up, fly a mission, go back. Between takeoff and landing, the gunfighter would probably be, he's gone an hour and 20 minutes. We're up there for 3 hours and 20 minutes. So it's all relative. We're amazed at them of what they can do, and airplanes going so fast, and just watching them is this thing of beauty.
I'm not sure if I understood what the Vietnam War was about, but I was always surprised why it wasn't about holding a territory, it was more or less going on body counts, huh?
Well, that's when your enemy is 300 feet across the river from you and you're not allowed to engage him, that basically sums up the war. So when the military briefed every day, all they did is talk about body count. They didn't talk about, well, we captured part of Da Nang. No, you didn't. No, the North Vietnamese, they controlled the war. They controlled our strategy. They controlled everything. You know,
But
now,
wasn't it frustrating to you? Because
yeah, and a lot of the guys really got upset and got out of the military because of it.
I fully understand.
Really
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, at night, when you fuel a bunch of aviators, particularly when they lost Lee Harrison or Mac Bird or whoever their pilot friends, my classmate died. The hate, what we call the hate was fueled. The hate was fueled. And people, you know, most of our guys were college graduates, had masters. They're pretty educated and they're pretty sharp. And they felt so frustrated. And that's why a lot of them said, I'm not going to risk my life flying North Vietnam. I'm going to come back to Phu Bai and fly an easy mission, radio relay, or fly over the Ashall Valley at night to see if we can see any, you know, artillery fire, you know, whatever. So they didn't want to risk their lives for worthless war. Yes, they were afraid of the fire, but they didn't like our strategy. Picture a Marine knowing that you're living in a place that you can be reached by their small caliber indirect weapon mortar, that you can be reached every night if they get close enough. If not, they've got an artillery piece for 2 miles, 3 miles away that can reach you every night. And they did. And, you know, next morning we get up and I said, they'd say, hey, Contien or Alpha 2 or Charlie 1 or one of the fire bases, we're taking incoming. How many did you take? 12 rounds. How many Marines were killed? 6. Let's go find the gun. And there was some intel about where the guns were. They can tell from the angle it comes in or something. They'd always say, go out this azimuth at, you know, 10 clicks or 20 clicks, and we go look for the gun. And we destroyed a lot of guns. That was another thing. When you see a bomb or an artillery piece, destroy a gun. I mean, because we'd have to tell them, is this tube still there? Or no, nothing's there. And our back seats had cameras most of the time. And so they would take pictures of them. That was a very frustrating war. That's why the Marines never extended. They stayed 13 months and then went home to California or whatever.
So, but it happened that you had a hard fight in an area, and probably 5 days later, you had the same again in the same area.
You're exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's what we were all upset about.
Horrible. Huh?
Yeah. Remember this.
Australia,
We had hundreds and hundreds of, I don't know how many people were killed at Quai Son. Say how many people were killed at Hamburger Hill. We took the hill after losing all those people, and they took it over right after we conquered it. So we go up the hill, lose all those people, Hamburger Hill, and they come down, and next thing you know, North Vietnamese are there. So we didn't accomplish anything. You know, I was fortunate enough to, when I was flying with Delta, I was fortunate enough to fly General Westmoreland up and back to New York City. This is out of consciousness, and I said, because he had asked me to come to his house for dinner, lovely wife, and he was testifying against the 60 Minutes, you know, that said some terrible things about him in the war. And he said, we wanted to stop any domino effect, you know, with the Chinese. I said, wait a minute, you're worried about a domino effect? The Chinese going to enter the war? North Vietnamese just defeated you. They didn't need any help. Yeah, did they use the Russian people in the airplanes? Yeah. Did they use what, Russian equipment? Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, we lose 60,000 people about, plus how many are injured, how many families divided. We didn't gain anything. I mean, did we lose? Yeah, we lost. People don't want to admit that. We lost. We quit. We left. And then North Vietnamese killed all the South Vietnamese and then put the rest of them in education camps.
Yeah, I saw a documentation. It was a French documentation on Arte. It took 7 hours. It was just about the Vietnam War, and exactly what you said at the end, when the North Vietnamese came down to the south, yeah, they killed more than 100,000 South Vietnamese.
Correct.
It's awful. That's horrible. And also those training camps to re-educate them, yeah,
Absolutely.
to the communist system, yeah, crazy, absolutely crazy.
So we gave up everything. We gave up 60,000 people with millions and millions of dollars for what? You know, what was our objective? So our objective was, say, the French lost. Let's say, so we're going over there, and I don't need to repeat all the stuff that you already know. But back to the original question, why the people left the DMZ was the frustration of seeing the enemy. You're flying over them and they're right there, and you can't kill them because there's a bombing halt. And we go like, okay, all right. So we can't go up there, but they can walk across that bridge or swim across that river and kill our Marines every night. And that's what they did. Like 300 people a week. I mean, people still do not believe the carnage until you read the descriptions of particularly the Marines, the people that fought in Leatherneck Square. That, why are we still here? Why were we at Quezon and lose all those people every night? Why was it important to be there? We're not there now. Yeah, you got it. You know it. I don't need to tell you that. You're very wise.
Charlie, when you think back at your time in the bird dog, at the Catkillers, what are your feelings today? What are your emotions? Was it the best time? Was it an exciting time?
It was the best year of my life.
Oh, really?
Because,
okay.
Yeah, best year. I'm 80 years old, best year of my life. Nothing at Delta, no marriage, no having a kid. You know, there's nothing to reflect that it's not the best 13 months of my life. You know, you became somebody that you didn't know you were until you were tested. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. At the reunions, we talk about health and girlfriends and grandchildren and stuff like that. We don't really talk about, you know, man, that was the best mission you ever flew, and I'm so impressed by you. We'd seen it. We saw it. We heard it. We heard it at the poker table. Everybody's going to embellish the story a little bit, but usually you got a wingman or you got somebody over there listening to you, or he's actually watching what you're doing, and both of you are getting shot at. And the year is the confidence in the American soldier, you know, that because if you've never been to, and it's not a big deal, but if you've never been to war, the band of brothers is very, very difficult to describe. It's not like a medical team or a captain and co-pilot in a Delta airplane, air-conditioned car getting coffee from flight attendants. The team is built because there's an amount of fear, there's an amount of overcoming the fear, there's an amount of sacrifice, there's an amount of empathy, and seeing so many body bags and so many names on the Stars and Stripes the next day. You turn the page and the list, and you're going to sick out instead of supporting those people. None of the Catkillers. No, we went up there. We engaged the battle, put steel on target. You know, and I could never go back because of two friends of mine were POW MIAs. We never did find them. My classmate was a POW. It walked all the way up to Hanoi. I couldn't go back. You know, I was, Charlie's Corp. But you should see Da Nang. They got swimming pools and beaches and 70-story, but I don't care. I don't care. They did not treat our POWs and our MIAs fairly. They never have.
I have a final question to you. Do you have, now with age 80, do you have any advice? I know that you do a lot for disadvantaged people.
I do. That's what I've given back, but I've done that for 50 years. My parents, my mother particularly, believed in charity work. She was a candy striper. She worked for the Red Cross, free, volunteer, and she always encouraged me to volunteer. And I lived in disadvantaged areas around the airport. And I just, built like 14 habitats, and you do that. You just give back. Like this morning, I was at the food pantry at 8:30, serving 45 people or whatever it was. And that's what you do. I work, I
Is
just
this
feel,
an advice? Giving back something?
I think it's important. I've given back all my life. And I think that's, I'm not taking care of my wife is one thing, but it's not being selfish. Everybody looks after everybody, and we just feel like there's a need. We're so blessed. I'm 80 years old. I'm still alive. I've got congestive heart failure, and I'm still alive. So what am I going to do? You can only play golf and go, and I can't drink, can't have coffee. So why not go serve the people that need the food? And that's like, well, you do gooder. No, I'm doing it all my life. I've been doing it all my life.
Hey, Charlie, and I want to say thank you very much for this
No.
opportunity. You don't know how much it means to me, really.
It's great. It's great to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been. I don't want to see any more wars, but you've been a great war pilot. Now you got your observation.
Thank you, sir.
All right, my friend. Take care.
Take care. Bye. I hope you liked this video with Charlie. What a legend, or? He's a fantastic and so kind man. I really enjoyed this interview with him. If you want to read more about the Catkillers, luckily the book 100 Feet Over Hell is still available on Amazon and other platforms. It's about Charlie, Doc Clement, and many other brave catkiller pilots. It's fantastic to read. I really enjoyed reading it. And please like and subscribe to this channel. And I really would appreciate it if you post a comment to this video, maybe about your experience in Vietnam or with the bird dog. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.